I'm here with Jared Mueller from SBNation, both the .com and also the Browns website. Was it the Dog Pound?
Dogs by Nature.
Dogs by Nature, I see right there.
Yeah.
Dog Pound's a different site. We don't got to talk about that.
They're okay. I used to be there long ago.
We're here to talk about the Cleveland Browns game. A lot of unknowns, a lot of, I think, mutual misery. Now the Vikings are 2-2, right? So it's like there's only so much misery you can have, but it feels kind of hopeless. The Browns are the Browns, but I think we've got at least an interesting talking point. I was never a fan of Dillon Gabriel coming out. It sounds like you weren't either, but we just kind of know who this guy is. What did you see from him in the draft, and then what have you seen from him, if anything, training camp, preseason, and if you could glean something from practices or whatever?
I think coming out at the combine and those kind of things, for me, Dillon Gabriel, size is a thing, but it really is about how much can he throw the ball, how much velocity does he have on the passes, can he get the deep ball, all of that kind of stuff. And I just didn't really see that kind of coming into the draft. What's been really interesting is where he actually wins is intellectually. He is throwing that ball before the receiver's coming out of the break. So ball placement, accuracy, timing, all of that, practice, preseason, and even the 4 passes he's thrown so far in mop-up duty, you have seen some of that where he may not have the velocity, but he knows where that ball should be. He's reading the defense. I mean, he spent 2 terms in college, right? 6 seasons. So you should think, besides Brian Flores' defense, what I'm sure we'll talk about later, he's probably seen it all. And so he's someone who is already making his decision when the ball is getting to him on the snap. He's a little bit more comfortable in the shotgun, but he does seem to really do well, knowing where the ball's going to go, feathering it over receivers and defenders and those kind of things. So far, so good. In really limited, time. Preseason doesn't really matter, playing against lawyers and accountants and those kind of things. But I have been impressed because, those are some of the things I value. Obviously, down the road, you want someone who can, drive the ball down the field, down the seam, get those out routes, hit those. But first, you got to be accurate. You got to know where the ball should go. You got to be able to read a defense. And he has shown that he can do that. Yeah,
I mean, it seems like, we talk a lot about kind of like threshold traits, right? Like you need to have this much arm strength, you need to have this much anticipation. But it seems like in some sense there is kind of like a sliding scale where you can get away with less arm strength the more anticipation and accuracy you have, or the other way around. Obviously ideal to have kind of both, right? But that's like, not to put too much pressure on Dillon Gabriel, but that's like how the back half of Peyton Manning's career kind of worked out. Tom Brady didn't lose a ton of arm strength, but still kind of made up for his losses with anticipation. Drew Brees kind of always had it. He actually gained arm strength a little bit over time, but that seems to be kind of how, especially the old school, these are the classic quarterbacks, how they kind of evolved. But one element that has changed about quarterback play is how much NFL teams value and deploy athleticism. Where is Dillon Gabriel kind of I know his size isn't great, but we have a Kyler Murray in the league too.
Right. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have the high end speed of Kyler Murray. But I feel like his agility, really, he is able to make a decision and go. And so he's more of kind of, if you think of a scat back, right? So he's kind of picking his positions, and we definitely will see a lot more play action pass with boots and rolls and those kind of things with Dillon Gabriel. Joe Flacco couldn't.
It doesn't really have
he looked like he was wearing cement boots, not going to roll on a boot. So Dillon Gabriel at least is going to give you more than that. Besides that, you might see a little of the scrambling, but he really does scramble or move around to try to get the ball downfield to get those 3 or 4 yards. He's not someone who's getting you those 30 or 40 yards, most likely, but he is crafty. I guess that's another word you might use for him, is that he's crafty as well with kind of how he moves around.
So one thing that you want out of those guys is good feel in the pocket then, because otherwise the athleticism is not doing you much. How is his pocket presence?
He wants to be in the pocket as short amount of time as possible, but not to get out of the pocket. He wants to make a decision as quickly as possible and get the ball out of his hand. So you actually see that as soon as the pocket starts to be a little uncomfortable, he is looking kind of for those right and left exits. But the good news is he's looking to go up and left, up and right. He's not, Shedeur Sanders during preseason looked really good, bailing back 15 yards. You're not seeing that. You are seeing a quarterback who understands, I need to escape the pocket this way and that way to make a play, because with his size, he's just not, once it's kind of on read 3 at the most, he really needs to see it, throw it. Read 1 and 2, anticipation, getting the ball out. By the time he gets to read 3, he's ready to kind of move, find the next landing spot, and then kind of throw.
Okay, that does present a problem for the Vikings defense, because the way that it seems like a lot of teams, and especially Aaron Rodgers here last week, with the Steelers, beat the Vikings is they enable yards after the catch for the receivers. I don't think there's a DK Metcalf on the Browns, but Rodgers had the quickest time to throw in a single game of any quarterback this year against the Vikings. Now, that is who Rodgers is now, and he has 4 of the 8 quickest games, so that's part of it. But it just seems like a lot of teams are attempting to beat the Vikings by getting rid of the ball quickly, because they vacate kind of the shallow, sort of intermediate. They send a bunch of people up front. They have like an umbrella up top. They play off coverage. They've got their zones on top of those blitzes. It's a little bit unique, but a lot of people kind of understand what the shape geometry of that defense is. So it's a lot of shallow crossers, a lot of maybe some intermediate stuff. And that seems like the playing style that works well with Gabriel. So is there maybe Gabriel is not, we're not expecting him to be a world beater or anything like that, but styles make fights. Is there stylistically an advantageous matchup for Gabriel here?
I think it really does fit really well, as long as he can diagnose, right? So that's really going to be the key is he able to diagnose which of those 5-6 guys up front is going to drop? Because Jerry Jeudy on crossers, love that, get him moving in speed. David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr., even Dylan Sampson out of the backfield. There's a lot of pass catchers who are going to work in those kind of short areas. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons I really wanted Joe Flacco to continue in the role. Is that's where he was playing well, is where he could make those really quick decisions, just get the ball out, let the receivers do what they need to do. So that's really, I do expect, a lot of passes to Fannin, a lot of passes to Njoku. We'll see if Sampson gets in the game. Quinshon Judkins is really, since he's been back on the team, he's getting 80% of the snaps, those kind of things. So, but Sampson had, I believe, 8 receptions in week 1 when Judkins was out, and so really fast out of the backfield. So I think it's a really good matchup for Gabriel and what kind of the Browns have to work with, especially if they get the run game going.
Okay, yeah, let's talk a lot about kind of those skill players. Let's start with those tight ends. I think that it's just an interesting conversation there. I think The Athletic put out their quarter poll all rookie team, and it's hard to beat Tyler Warren, but Fannin got their honorable mention slot at tight end. And what was it, week 1? Maybe he had an outstanding, and then he's been kind of pretty good since then. But can you tell me a little bit more about Harold Fannin, how it works together in an offense with Njoku? Is Njoku maybe not playing at the level we expect, or kind of what's going on there?
Yeah, it looks like David Njoku, whether it was on purpose, whether the team wanted it, or laziness, has put on some weight. And so he is much slower than he's ever been. We are not used to seeing David Njoku take a pass and get tackled really quickly. He's not turning upfield quickly. He just does not have speed. Last week, there was kind of a middle screen set up for him, and a linebacker just tripped him up. Wide open field in front of him, blockers in front of him. He is just not quick or fast that he used to be. And so I don't know if the team asked him to put on more weight to be the kind of primary blocking tight end. Harold Fannin's a little bit of a smaller tight end. So it's interesting to see what Njoku has become this year with a free agency on the back end of the season. Probably not helping his cause very much. Fannin has been used literally everywhere. Split out wide, tight end, backfield, carrying the ball, wildcat quarterback. They have put Harold Fannin everywhere. And they've used him in a lot of creative ways, and they really just trust him to catch the ball. They trust him to sit down in the zones where he needs to be or to continue. And he seems, until a drop last week, really had nothing to really complain about. Over the shoulder catch. Those aren't easy. They feel like they should be easy, but anytime you're turning your head that way. So they're using him literally all over the field. Whereas it feels like Njoku, where he's going to be. He's going to just kind of sit down curl routes, some of those those easy, simple routes over the middle of the field. Harold Fannin, you're not sure where he's going to line up. And while he's not the dynamic playmaker, he is the guy that they rely on a lot to do a lot of different things.
So in terms of we're talking about matchups, right? So the Vikings do this kind of matchup zone. I mean, matchup zone's not new to the NFL anymore, but a lot of times they'll follow as if they're in man, especially against emotion, right? And that creates, these matchups in zones that, if for example, Fannin's running an outside route, he's probably going against Isaiah Rodgers or Byron Murphy. They're both 5'10".
Right.
You mentioned that Fannin's a little bit smaller, but it is still a tight end versus a cornerback.
Correct. Yeah. So he's smaller for David Njoku, 6'5", 265, and
Right.
fully muscled.
Yeah.
So he looks smaller when you see him two next to each other. But, he's still, I think, 6'3", 230, 225, something in that range.
Okay.
And so he really does. It's really interesting to watch him, and the fact that he fell into the third round is just wild to a lot of people. There's now a story of Kevin Stefanski cheering when he had a slow 40 time at the NFL Combine.
Okay.
But just believing BGSU, he's going to fall to us in the third round. They just knew it, which is, for me, impressive, just to know the league enough to know we're getting that guy in the third round. He was one of the guys we all were like, youngest guy in the draft. This is a Browns player. Where they get him is a different conversation.
Right.
But yeah, so I think matchups are going to be really interesting. And I think he's really smart at smaller guy, physical, bigger guy, fast.
Okay.
So you do see really a lot of intelligence from a small school guy, right?
Yeah.
Ohio native, all that. So, Ohio people really love to cheer on our own. And so he's going to definitely be a fan favorite for a while.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about these receivers. So I feel like the history of receivers with the Browns has been like, oh, this guy has a ton of promise. Oh, it's not that great. It feels like there's like a lot of that. Now, the trade for Jerry Jeudy, I was a big fan of. I thought that, he had a lot of, untapped potential. Wasn't working with the Broncos at the time. The Broncos had extraordinary depth. Made a lot of sense. But I don't know. Jerry Jeudy, he just hasn't done as much as I kind of expected. What's going on?
Yeah, so we actually thought he was a steal last year, 1,100 yards, somewhere in that range. Yeah. Fifth round pick, all fine. And then this year, the connection with Joe Flacco is just not there. So last year, 5 different quarterbacks, somehow still producing. This year, him and Joe Flacco were just never on the same page. Flacco became a see-it-throw at quarterback. And so Jerry did really well last year. Jameis Winston would just kind of launch it, right? We know that about. Jameis is going to just kind of throw it up and see what happens. But he was hitting Jerry Jeudy in stride. There was a route last week that Jerry Jeudy just left someone in the dust. And Flacco was 2 seconds late. Ball sideline, defender caught up, all of that. And so he dropped a key third down, and so it's just been a frustrating season for him so far. He gets in his head a little bit. For a number one receiver, a little bit smaller, a little bit slight. So you really need him on routes, either those shallow crossers or a lot of play action where you can get him on kind of a deep over route, those kind of things where you can kind of use his speed, find the hole in the zone or leave his man behind and kind of keep going. This year, quarterback play has been abysmal for the Browns. And so unless Flacco is dropping the ball off, it just didn't fit for Jeudy.
And can you tell me a little bit about Isaiah Bond? So obviously there were, I don't know actually when the allegations came out, like right before the draft or?
It was a little bit, I think it was shortly after the college season actually ended. Oh, okay. So just nothing was cleared up until after the draft had happened. And
then it sounds like charges were dropped, right?
Yep.
So he was free to sign with any team. It was the Browns. A lot of jokes to make about that.
He also personally thanked, before ever anybody else reported it, he reported he was going to the Browns, personally thanked the owner in his letter. There's a lot of jokes there. With Cedric Tillman out for a few weeks, it's going to be a lot of Isaiah Bond. I think that's going to be interesting. He's made a lot of plays so far, a lot of speed there. I think more hype than really production coming out of college, but he does have a lot of speed. It reminds me of Travis Benjamin, who the Browns had a 4th round pick, Rabbit, not Janoris Jenkins, the other Rabbit, who did well in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan. But even last week saw him go up for a ball that, normally a player of his size is not going to make that play. And so far been really impressed. Obviously an undrafted free agent, more likely to be a 2nd or a 3rd round pick this year, but still a UDFA. So far, so good. This rookie class has been so good for us that having a Bond kind of come in as a bonus has just been great.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other receivers, I don't have a lot of familiarity with. A lot of it, I think, is because Cedric Tillman was playing such a significant role before he got hurt. But Malachi Corley, kind of a Swiss Army knife that the Jets actually valued a lot before they didn't. Jamari Thrash, I remember him from, was he the Senior Bowl last year?
Louisville.
Yeah. People were a fan of him. And then I have no idea who this undrafted free agent is.
Gage Larvin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you pretty much just talked about all similar players, a lot of gadgety types.
Okay.
Jamari Thrash is a little bit more of a, for Browns fans, Rashard Higgins, slot, not a slot receiver, can play outside, can play inside, more of a possession receiver, not really going to wow you, impress you at all. And then you look at Corley and Larvin or maybe punt returner, kick returner. DeAndre Carter is out. He just went to IR, so he was our primary returner. They're probably going to play some of that role. Bond really doesn't have experience with that, even though he has the speed. But you have a lot of gadget guys there. You have almost no size with the Browns receiving core. Jerry Jeudy's listed at 6'1", 185 pounds, I believe.
Right, yeah.
He's our biggest receiver at this point in time. So unless they bring up Caden Davis off the practice squad and activate him for this game, it's not going to be a lot of big receivers out there.
Okay, that's great because the Vikings don't have big corners.
Perfect.
Let's talk a little bit about the running back group. So Dylan Sampson, I had him at the beginning on my fantasy team. It was pretty good for me. And then I was able to grab Quinshon Judkins too. So it sounds like, when it was like Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson was doing a lot of the receiving stuff. Ford was kind of, between the tackles. Raheem Sanders was trying to get involved.
He had a touchdown.
And then Quinshon Judkins gets on the field. What was he? He needed to sign, or
he needed to sign. So he's the one that had his legal charge happen right before training camp.
Yeah,
and then there was just some questions about does his guarantees all
does
of that
cover that?
Yeah. So he signed. I believe it was Tuesday before week 1, and then was in after that. Didn't play in week 1. Junkins has really taken the bulk of everything. Jerome Ford, while he's afraid to hit the hole now at this point in time, he's 80 yards or -2 yards is kind of what he's got at this point. They do trust him in pass protection right now. It's really hard to trust rookies, especially against the Vikings. And so I think you're going to see more of Ford, even though he's not going to be productive, just because they want to keep, Dylan Gabriel. We got a couple Dylans, so we got to make sure I keep them straight. They want to keep Gabriel upright as much as possible. Judkins has, he looks like the bell cow back that you want. He may not have that top end speed where he's going to be the 180 yards in game type, but he's probably going to be that 100, 120 yards. He's going to grind out. He's got a little bit of the Nick Chubb without that top end speed, where he's always falling forward. He's always he's looking for contact a little bit. The Kansas City running back that also wears number 10 that I can't think of off the top of my head right now his name. Their running back
Isaiah Pacheco.
He has a little bit of Pacheco to him, so they share numbers, which helps. So you'll see that he is not afraid to get physical. He's always moving forward. He's always taking on tackles. So you're going to see a lot of him on the field.
Okay. Not great for the Vikings run defense, which is uncharacteristically pretty bad this year. And they just let the Steelers running back, whose name I keep on forgetting.
Warren? No, he was out.
No, he was out for the game. Yeah, which was great for me because I had a bunch of Jonnu Smith shares. But, man, okay. Well, that's going to
go. Too many teams to think about.
But let's talk a little bit about that offensive line because that's what's going to help enable that running game. Jack Conklin out?
Don't know yet. So he has been questionable going to the last few games, has an elbow issue. And so what'll be interesting is now with DeJuan Jones out, picking up Cam Robinson in a trade for almost nothing.
Vikings great, Cam Robinson.
Yeah. So Cam's only played left tackle, right?
Yeah.
But you have a left-handed quarterback. And I do wonder with Conklin's elbow issue, if playing left tackle will allow him to not have the issue that he's having, because we watch him in his stance and you can tell he's barely touching the ground in his stance in practice. So it'll be interesting again it's not a short week, but it's a weird week traveling over. Right. They literally landed, I think I got the text at like 4 a.m. this morning, London time. And then they didn't have an escort and from the airport. So they were on buses. I heard David Njoku had the aux cord and was keeping people pumped up. So I don't know how this week's going to help anything of Jack Conklin healing, and no clue on Cam Robinson coming over, having not played much for Houston this year.
What do we know about that interior offensive line? Because like 4 years ago, this interior offensive line was amazing.
Yeah, they got old really quick.
Oh, no.
Yeah, real quick. Ethan Posick came out of nowhere, Seattle, second round pick, I believe, came to the Browns 1 year, $1 point something million contract, looked really good under Bill Callahan. not so good since. Joel Bitonio was thinking about retiring. Came back for Joe Flacco is one of the reasons he came back. Yeah, that's interesting. Has struggled with a back issue. The week they played the Packers and beat the Packers. You guys are welcome.
Great game.
He could barely walk.
Oh, wow.
And made it through. I mean, there were people in the building are like, Jared, we're talking Joel is holding walls. And some made jokes about me on my back and leg issues.
Right.
Like, Jared, he looks worse than you. It's just pretty surprising. So the interior of the line just does not look good. Wyatt Teller has continued to be fine. But again, offensive line, we have 4 weak links most of the time. And so it doesn't matter how good Wyatt Teller is because a bit slow on pulling, screens. Everybody just seems a little late getting out there. It just seems like everybody's running in cement boots, which is not the style, right? This is a move offensive line.
Right.
Cement boots don't work. We're not driving people down the field. Fine if you have that. These are offensive linemen that they want to get out in front of things, pull, those kind of things. And you're just everybody's a tick slow. So overall, the offensive line is the issue. I'm glad it sounds like Van Ginkel is not going to be around, but there's a lot of other issues on Minnesota that we have to deal with.
Be a fair amount of pass rush. How's the communication between them? Because, passing off, that's like a big element of trying to battle the Vikings.
It seems like they do fine with that. Overall, they don't seem to have a lot of missed assignments. They have a lot of getting blown by. And so that's at least a positive going into this. The Browns actually hired 2 assistant offensive line coaches this year to go with Coach Bloomgren, who they brought in, who used to coach under Callahan. So they were hoping to kind of get a little of that Callahan rub this year. But they wanted the offensive line to kind of be the star of the show, and it's been anything but. In this upcoming offseason, it's highly likely we might be looking at 5 new starters going into next season.
Oh, my gosh.
Due to free agency, retirement. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You'll get DeJuan Jones back.
For about 3 games? This is the 3rd leg injury that has ended his season. He's in his 3rd season. I don't know if everybody knows that. 3rd leg injury, 3rd season, and the guy is 385. It's not promising.
Right. All right, let's talk about. I don't want to do this.
Let's have a little more fun. I like this side of this conversation.
This is not great, dude. All right, so the Browns are number 1 in run stop win rate, number 1 in pass rush win rate. They have, I believe, the most productive win rate defensive tackle in Mason Graham, although a lot of that is concentrated in 1 week against the Packers. They have the best. Even Micah Parsons said it. The best edge rusher in the NFL. I'm glad we moved on from the TJ Watt. TJ Watt's really good,
right?
But this is not comparable to me. It never has been.
Steelers fans really love our site for that.
No, I bet. Yeah. Isaiah McGuire is top 5 in pass rush win rate among all edge defenders. Malik Collins is productive. Shelby Harris is just doing everything.
Yep. Alex Wright is bigger than Myles Garrett.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is crazy. Also, one of my favorite UDFAs in the draft, Aiden Huntington. He's just, I don't think he's done anything. I love him.
He's amazing. So fullback, defensive tackle, has made plays, has a half sack, I believe, with Myles. Is almost always, here's the thing you're going to enjoy, is almost always the first guy down, punt and kick coverage.
That's outstanding.
Almost always is the first guy down. Again, 6'1", 265, whatever he is as a defensive tackle. Yeah. His speed and quickness off the ball is ridiculous. It's not Aaron Donald, obviously, but there's that size comparison stuff.
Right.
It's wild to watch. You're like, how did again, 6'1", but Clancy, similar size. He's a first round pick. Like, how do you let this guy fall? Right. So it is a lot of fun to watch this defensive line. The Browns have historically sucked at stopping the run. I mean, just been bad, like wide open semi-truck holes. And all of a sudden, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, Carson Schwarzenegger on the second level.
Carson's great.
Good grief.
We'll talk about him in a second. But yeah.
This defensive line, and it's just, when Myles Garrett's out of the game, you only notice it because they show him. Otherwise, you're like, they're still getting pressure, right? It's not because, he always takes 2 to 3. Mina Kimes had the great, I love the conga line that they set up for 3 guys to block him. It's freaking ridiculous. But even then, even without him on the, Graham and Collins and McGuire, Alex Wright, all of that, like they come in waves at you. They're running a lot of stunts, a lot of things that out of that wide 9 that all of a sudden you go from wide to not so wide really quickly, or you have Mason Graham looping around and your quarterback is going to crap his pants as you see this huge man coming at you, but Myles Garrett's standing in front of you, so you're picking your poison.
Right.
I can tell you, if I'm not a traditionalist in a lot of ways, but man, it feels AFC North, or old school AFC East, right? Or Central, sorry, AFC Central. It feels like it with that defensive line, because every run play, I'm like, unless they get it bounced outside. They bounce outside, different story. Isaiah McGuire, even Myles Garrett really love to push the pocket. And so a lot of things can bounce outside. But otherwise, I just assume they're not going anywhere. And the quarterback's going to have to get rid of the ball really quickly. And I was really low on Carson Wentz when he came out.
Fantastic. I love to hear that.
And so anytime I get proven right with Carson Wentz, really high on Jared Goff. He has the right first name. But anytime I get to be right on Carson Wentz is going to be good. So I can't wait for the first wide-eyed, holy crap moment, because we know we're going to get at least 5 of those.
Yeah, no, for sure. And for people who are unfamiliar with why I focused on an undrafted, aside from the fact that I just do that sometimes, Aiden Huntington was one of the pro days that I isolated as having one of the best pro days I've ever seen from the 25 draft class. He played edge rusher initially at Tulane and then kicked inside, or maybe the other way around. I don't remember. But he played a bunch of different roles, played all 9 alignments in college. So just, super fun. And they don't even have Mike Hall, who is incredible as well.
And he should be back, but who knows? He may have had a little bit of a setback.
All right, so let's talk about this linebacker group. It is Carson Schwessinger and some other guys. Tell me about that.
Pretty much. So when the Steelers make a mistake in the first round on a linebacker, you're very confused, right? So they traded up for Devin Bush.
Yeah, Steelers never trade up.
Never trade up. And never make real defensive mistakes.
Yeah.
And he's a huge one. All of a sudden, the last 2 years has looked really, really good at linebacker, and it's shocking to me. Like, I am not a Devin Bush fan.
And this isn't just like with the defensive line is cleaning everything up.
No, even last year when the defensive line wasn't what it is this year, Devin Bush is a smart, heady player who knows where he needs to be. I think he benefits from Carson Schwessinger, and before that, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Adding him to the defense would be good grief.
Yeah.
But Devin Bush has looked really good. Jerome Baker, he's a veteran. He's been around. He knows what he's doing. Diabate is an athletic player. Another
undrafted pro day standout.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's looked good. He's dealt with some injuries that have kind of slowed him down this year. But Schwessinger, we call him Captain America for some reason, because he just kind of fits for him. Is literally everywhere. Like, you're just like, how did he get here, right? Like, I remember just training camp and some of the OTA stuff. You're like, he's just always in the right place. And there was a thud. He had the first thud of the training camp, and we're just like, that's different. And just his size, his speed, it's been really unique. And so, I thought he should be Sunshine based on his picture, because he definitely looks like a guy from Remember the Titans. Yeah. But it's been a lot of fun to see that the defensive line makes it. They don't have to do a lot at linebacker. Just be where you're supposed to be, and then Schwessinger cleans everything up.
So all of that kind of coalesces around this Vikings offensive line problem, right? Mm-hmm. So Christian Darrisaw is back. I don't know that he's moving at 100%, but he's playing really well. Brian O'Neill is out. Ryan Kelly is out.
Donovan Jackson
is out. Will Fries is not good.
Would you say he gets fried a lot? Sorry, I don't know.
So they've got Blake Brandel, Michael Juergens, the backup center, might be out, which means I don't know if you've heard of Joe Huber, Wisconsin center / guard.
I've heard of, yeah.
You might hear a lot more.
Is he the guy you had to fly over yesterday? I'm pretty sure you guys had to charter he might have flown over with the Browns. I don't know. But I know you guys had to fly over some offensive linemen yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I don't even know if there'll be. It's like an activation. I don't know, man. But it's not great. So that means mostly we just have to talk about Carson Wentz's response to pressure, which is what a lovely conversation that is. So Wentz, over the past couple of years, including like the 40-odd snaps he had to the Chiefs and the Rams, has done a pretty good job of identifying the first read, and it pains me to say stuff like this because I don't like them, of identifying the first read and getting rid of the ball quickly in those scenarios. And when that's not there, well, they had 6 sacks on like a 34% pressure rate against the Steelers. That can't happen. That's a 33% pressure to sack rate. That's number 1 in the NFL. That actually, the Vikings have the 2 quarterbacks that are number 1 and number 2 in pressure to sack rate.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just. Man, I gotta go tell Kevin Stefanski all of this. Like, I'm pretty sure he knows. they like stats.
Oh, great. No, I've heard. But yeah, so it sounds like for both McCarthy and especially Wentz, it seems like figuring out what the Vikings' first read is going to be and complicating that picture is kind of that approach, which leads me to kind of, because pressure is always a choreography of like the front 7 and the back 7. All 14 players, right?
Math's not mathin'.
Right. Of how the coverage and the pass rush kind of align. And this is a pretty good coverage unit. I would not argue it's an elite coverage unit, but I like Greg Newsome. I like Denzel Ward.
Done. That's the end of that conversation, I think. Miles Harden is a player that's on the field.
Right, yeah. So he's present and he's taking up snaps, and that's wonderful for him. How is it that, like, Grant Delpit, right? Is it Delpit?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay. Ronnie Hickman. How does that back end coverage look? Do they have the capacity to kind of consistently confuse, the ability to get to your first read? What does that look like?
So they're not going to confuse you. They are going to be impress man and beat them. See what happens. All right, that's literally
Very Steelers. Okay.
Yeah, so they're going to be impressed man the whole time, and that really works well for the pressure defense that they have. They're not going to get a lot of turnovers. Obviously, man coverage, zone coverage, you don't get as much in man. But they're going to be pressed up on you. Denzel Ward believes he can stick with anybody, anytime for the rest of the time. Like, that is literally it. He does not care. He will play in trail. He feels comfortable in trail. He feels comfortable being in your back pocket. He feels comfortable that he can sprint with you. And he does make up space pretty well. He can read eyes, read hands really, really well. Newsome is also similarly belief and not as good at doing it. And so they lost Martin Emerson, Achilles injury, training camp, who would normally
underrated rookie year, by the way.
Absolutely. And then struggled the last 2 years. And so goes into free agency now, coming off an Achilles injury, unfortunately. So they're going to play in press man. Where Minnesota is going to have the benefit is in the slot. Ronnie Hickman, undrafted free agent last year, pushed into starting because Juan Thornhill forgot how to play football when he came to Cleveland. It happens a lot. We're used to it. Free agent, supposed to be really good and supposed to be a leader. John Johnson somehow becomes terrible. Don't understand it. So Ronnie Hickman probably should not be a starting free safety at this point in time in his career. Maybe in the next couple of years developing. And so Grant Delpit is good in what he does, but Miles Harden, Cam Mitchell was our 5th-round pick. We just released him. He wasn't very good.
Great.
The Ravens just torched everything over the middle. It wasn't that they did anything special, and that's really the hard thing about what the Browns have struggled with. They haven't been really out-talented. They just suck at little basic things, catching the ball and punt coverage and slot corner really has been the problem. Miles Harden looked a little bit better this last week against the Lions, but St. Brown is going to make anybody look a little foolish. So I think what how the Minnesota is going to work well is if they can get Justin Jefferson lined up in some of those bunch formations so that he gets a free release and is really working over the middle, less outside. So, but I think they're going to try to get Ward to travel with them as much as possible. They like to have Ward one side, Newsome the other normally. But today, I think this week they're going to really want to look at how can they get Justin Jefferson taken care of by Ward and figure the rest of it out and hope that Wentz just doesn't have time to get to number 2 and 3.
Right. So is that something that you've noticed about the Browns defense, that they typically play sides, but when there is an isolated receiving threat, they'll have Ward travel?
That we've seen that a lot at times. Emerson was the size cornerback, so sometimes they're going to put him DK Metcalf types and all that. It's not something they like to do. They really they think their players are going to get more comfortable when they're, at least their secondary, when they're just kind of on those sides and they're feeling things out.
The footwork is like
the same.
Yeah,
it's kind of left tackle, right tackle kind of stuff. But they will do that at times when they can. The hard thing in press man is when you get those bunch formations all of a sudden, and you will see some of that. You're going to see some of those kind of mistakes where they thought this and they thought that, and they both are going with that receiver, and St. Brown is wide open for a touchdown on a third and 3 on the goal line kind of thing. So, but yeah, you'll see Ward travel at times depending on the importance of the down, maybe early in the game to try to take Jefferson out of the game. Otherwise, you're probably going to see them left, right.
So I think one of the interesting contrasts between like the Lions game and the Packers game is that the Packers are a deep ball offense. They love to enable the deep ball. And the Lions will beat you wherever, but they're primarily a yak offense. They like the underneath stuff. They like intermediate. And it seems like that because of the nature of the coverage in the pass rush, right, that the Browns are uniquely built to beat deep ball offenses. Now, the Vikings super want to be a deep ball offense.
They would love to be.
Aspirationally, they were with Sam Darnold, right? And, the route concepts that we saw for the first couple of weeks kind of matched that ideal. It sounds like that's an adjustment they're making. It's also not something that they're crazy comfortable doing. It's not something they drilled a ton in training camp or anything like that. But, if we see, and Jefferson's a threat at all levels, but if we see kind of hey, we got Jordan Addison running a crosser now instead of just running deep. We've got Justin Jefferson running a square in instead of just kind of going on a post and all that kind of. If we see that kind of adjustment to try and get Wentz to get rid of the ball earlier, and these receivers tend to have a pretty good release. Addison can still work on his release a little bit. Is that an area where the Vikings have the ability? They're not going to score as much as the Lions, but is that an ability where the Vikings, or an area where the Vikings have the ability to kind of gain an advantage?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think those kind of routes, and then anything that's leveraged. So if the guy goes in motion, that's the guy that's getting the ball against the Browns, and it should be the guy that got the ball against the Browns. Because you're literally, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'm just putting in a lot more motion. They got to stay over here for a week, right? So they, like you and I got to. Spoiler alert, we're just walking in Dublin, and we have to run into
saw each other.
I'm like, I think that's Arif, but I'm going to be the weirdo that's going to come up to the dude and be like, hey, man. But they got to be over here. If I'm him, I'm putting in motion because you're literally just going to tire out Ward and Newsome because they're going to follow you and they're sprinting back and forth. And so I think there's a lot of different route combinations that you're going to see where over the middle, quick, some of those square ins, some of that you'll see that they should be able to take advantage of that kind of aggressive, leverage-oriented kind of stuff.
Okay. And the Vikings haven't been doing a ton of play action. They haven't been moving the pocket that much, despite McCarthy and Wentz being reasonably athletic. They might start. I don't know. That's you think about a McVay Shanahan system, and we're kind of stuck in what those look like in 2016, in fairness, but they did do a lot of that.
Right.
Should they do that to run the hell away from Myles Garrett? Would that help?
If I was another team, I'm running boot a lot. So I'm running play action boot because again, Garrett, McGuire, some of the defensive ends are crashing. And so you're going to give yourself kind of free look, obviously more of half the field, but you're going to give yourself more of a free look. You can mess things up a little bit on some of their stunts and some of that kind of stuff. I would do a lot of play action if I had the opportunity to do that. I'm moving that pocket. I'm doing a lot of motion. The Houston Texans in the playoff game just took advantage of everything that Jim Schwartz is not going to adjust to. He is just not going to. If you have misdirection, if you got a leaking out tight end, well, they're going to green dog blitz that line. Carson Wettinger is going to green dog blitz if that tight end stays in for a half second to block. So just leak him out after that. And you're going to Brevin, whatever his name, Brevin Knight's a point guard. Sorry. Too many sports.
Brevin Spanford?
Brevin Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Tight end. I think he had a 60-some yard completion just because he leaked out and there was nobody.
How are this many Brevins? What kind of name? Okay.
Yeah. So, and I've covered too many sports in my life, so I cross sports way too often. Yeah, so I think there's just any of that kind of flexibility, creativity is really going to work well against this defense.
Okay, that's good news at least. Probably a low scoring game. I haven't looked up like the Vegas odds or anything like that.
It's very low over under.
We got to find this out.
I have not seen where it's at this point, but it is not high.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to guess 38.5. Let's see what we got.
34.
Where do we? Come on. I'm so sorry. Total. Oh, so it opened. It opened at 41.5, and it got bet down to 36.5. One place is offering 35.5, which is FanDuel. It got lower than I thought. That's crazy.
I haven't seen that number in a long time.
Nuts. So it's a low scoring game. And the Vikings are favored by 3.5. I think a lot of that is just because of a rookie quarterback. And I think a lot of the line movement, because, well, the Vikings opened at -7. I guess they really don't like
That's
Flacco.
how bad Joe Flacco is. I mean, he did not look like he got his head around 3 seconds after a play action. I mean, it was forever.
Wow. Okay.
So somehow moving to a rookie third-round quarterback who's 5'9" has improved it
half. 3.5 points is a crazy swing. Okay, so they like Dylan Gabriel more than Joe Flacco, but it reduced the total, I guess, which is probably a statement about turnovers.
Yeah.
Okay, so given that, what do you think? Well, actually, let's talk a little bit about special teams. I always forget to talk about it. Yeah. Corey Borjarquez has learned how to hold, which means he's allowed to punt, and he's very good at that now. Or he's always been good at punting. Andre Schmidt, bad first couple of weeks, and then
bad 1 week. And then last week he missed a 57-yarder. So
Doesn't count.
Although
nowadays it feels like
everybody thinks you can.
You got to make a 57-yard field goal.
Wild.
What do we think about the special teams unit, especially knowing that like the punt return is not going to be?
Yeah, no idea who's going to punt return and what that's going to look like. That Bubba Ventrone feels like he is living on forever, right? Legend.
Okay.
Because our special teams have been nothing special. Like, they've just been bad for years in Cleveland with him. And before that, Mike Prefer weren't very good either. Now, again,
Vikings legend Mike Prefer.
It could be anecdotal, right? Like,
sure.
You remember the return. Like, last week, the Lions had a return for a touchdown. But it just always feels like there's a hold. There's a block in the back. There's a return. There's a missed kick. Punting, Borjarquez has been either great or frustrating, where you're like, you just punted that 70 yards into the freaking end zone, man. Like, what are we doing here, right? And so inconsistent is probably the word I'm going to use. I don't know if anybody on that staff is kind of light the fire kind of people. And the other issue, and I've always said this, Andrew Berry believes in churning the bottom of the roster. Well, that's your special teams guy. So there's not a lot of consistency there because they're consistently 50 and 52, 50 to 53. He wants to probably change those every 2 to 3 weeks. It's a lot of special teams players. So they say they value it and they put money into it. And Dustin Hopkins, they signed to a big contract last year and he's gone. Yeah. And so just really inconsistent. And so if the Vikings have a smart special teams coordinator, I could see some returns where, again, everything's about aggressive with Cleveland. And so you let them flow and then you kind of bring that cut back and you can get some yardage out of it.
I think Matt Daniels is good at a lot of elements of special teams. The penalty element, which we tend to put on the coaches, which I think is fair. Not as much, but I don't know, in terms of design, maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm seeing like these special teams units like this year do just crazy stuff, and the Vikings are not one of them.
Right.
And so at that point, you're just like, well, the Patriots are doing it. Can't you figure it out?
And Mike Vrabel just got there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, like, you know, I don't dislike Matt Daniels, but he seems really cool. But in terms of being able to take advantage of, you know, these specific opportunities, I don't know. We'll see. Great. So now that we've covered that and we've talked a little bit about that crazy over-under and the spread, what is your take on how this game is going to play out?
I think it's going to be really low scoring. I think they're going to try to run Quinshon Judkins as much as they can early. But I think the team's going to be energized. Change just tends to energize people. What I'm hearing from the buses, they're excited. I think I think they're going to have the energy. My biggest concern is I have no idea, and I'm going to ask Kevin Stefanski today, why they decided to practice on Wednesday afternoon and then fly over Wednesday night into Thursday. They're not practicing today, probably more of a walkthrough on Friday. It just feels like with Dylan Gabriel and all of that, like it just doesn't feel like it was well thought out to get that practice in and then fly, as opposed to fly and then just kind of have more of a concerted effort time together here. So I am a little bit worried about just kind of jet lag and some of those kind of things. But I think we're looking at 2017 is probably, and so that's where special teams is going to play a role. And, at this point, it's a coin flip for me. I do have a little homerism in me always. It's never going to go away. And so I believe the Browns defense and the offensive line issues for Minnesota, I think that's going to be a game changer.
Right.
Haven't really had that big fumble return kind of thing. And I think this is the game for that. I think Carson likes the ball, has the ball away from his body a little bit more than many quarterbacks do, especially like a Jared Goff.
The highest fumble rate since he's entered.
I know that's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the data. I just know the idea. I think this is the game where that big defensive turnover and special teams are going to play a big role. So I think 2017, somewhere in that range is what we're looking at.
Okay, cool. You mentioned energy and change, and I didn't want to make this a Shedeur Sanders podcast, and we didn't. But I do have to ask, has him being weird, which I know he was responding to like a Rex Ryan thing when he was doing the mime, whatever it was.
Pantomiming, yeah.
Yeah, but like, has him being weird or has him being on the roster dampened enthusiasm for someone like Dylan Gabriel?
It has. And Dylan Gabriel really feels like the most chill guy in the world. Like he just is like, oh, I'm going to do my thing.
He's Hawaiian, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you remember prior to his game with Ohio State, which
Tua is Hawaiian too, so it's not always
a little bit different, right? But there was a game interview before Ohio State where I'm not sure he was exactly in his right mind. And so I don't know what his choices outside of the field are, but he seems like nothing bothers him at all.
Whether that's internally or externally induced.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so Shedeur's been a really interesting case where training camp and even before, hardest worker, stays after, all of that kind of stuff. It seems like not starting and not having a role is starting to wear on him. He's just been the guy for so long in his life that it's starting to kind of wear on him. I'm not sure. So just inside baseball thing. The Browns are the most paranoid organization in the NFL, and I've been told that by everyone in the NFL that I've ever interacted with, to the point that you literally do not have access to players unless they allow it. There's even in the locker room, they're literally like, okay, come here. Okay, come here. Right. Like all of that. And so I don't know why they're allowing Shedeur Sanders to talk, but they've allowed him to talk the last couple of weeks, at least for a little while. And I'm not sure if that's them trying to set up things for when they cut him and like, look how weird this guy is, or trying to put him in the spotlight so he's at least stays engaged.
Yeah, like it could be like an escape valve for like all the steam that's building up.
Yeah. So he's struggling a little bit with playbooks, struggling a little bit with some of his focus now.
Sure.
Heard of some late to meetings kind of stuff. Haven't been able to verify it, but just seems to be a little more disengaged where everybody just loved his work ethic, loved what they saw from him before that. Just really, it takes him a little while to feel really comfortable and to know it. Even in Colorado, Pat Shurmur wasn't, I mean, again, Browns and we have some experience with him. He's not really running the show. Shedeur was.
Yeah.
But it was Shedeur running the show. He wasn't having to try to figure out what somebody else wanted to do. So he's going to take a little while. And unfortunately for him, he's not going to get a little while. He'll get some games probably this year. But those 2 first-round picks in 2026, even if it's not Arch Manning, which hopefully it's not Arch Manning based on everything we've seen on the field, whether that's the Lenora Sellers or whoever, probably are going to get, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And I'm wondering if the Browns wish they would have pulled the trigger on a couple of trade offers they got at the end of training camp, including one from Mr. Sean McVay, who was very interested in bringing in Shedeur, which is interesting because they would have had some opportunities to do that. So thankfully it's the sideshow. It's not Johnny Manziel where he's starting and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So,
all right. Thanks so much for coming on. 2017 Browns, it sounds like. We'll see if you're right or wrong. Yeah. I probably won't even remember that we had a prediction. Appreciate it, and see you at the game.
Yeah, see you there, buddy.
Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SBNation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif of... and he can be found on Twitter at ArifNFL. I'm your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at BigMono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.